Egyptian, where are Egyptian dead? Yeah. Egyptian. What's up, everyone? We're the Hilsmaniacs, and today we're going to be reviewing the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. So I'm just going to come right out and say it. I didn't really like this movie as much as I did, like, Murder on the Orient Express. Like, I don't know, just, it didn't seem like it was as good as that one. Like, even the setup at the beginning to lead into the murder felt like it dragged on too long. Like, I think it was like the first hour of the movie where nothing really happened. It was just kind of showing us...
It was setting up the characters.
Yeah, these are the characters you're supposed to see. But, like, on Murder on the Orient Express, they did that in, like, maybe 20 minutes or something. Like, these are the characters that are getting on the train. You need to pay attention to these guys. And then Hercule Poirot is here to investigate the murder. And it's like you try and guess who's going to be the victim at first. You know, they did that really well in that movie. And I just feel like this one didn't do that.
Well, and even in, like, Murder on the Orient Express, like, yeah, they showed us these characters before they got on the train. But we got to know them as they're on the train, like, you know, as part of the main storyline. We got to know them as it went, and then the murder happened, and then you learned more about these people, and you realized who the killer was. You know, later on, you realize why it makes sense who the killer was. You know, for this one, it was just kind of like, it focused on, like, two people the whole time, and then once somebody got murdered, then they bring in, they're like, oh yeah, this guy's here too. Like,
yeah, it was kind
of, like you said, it was slow, like, introducing these characters, because there was the main, like, Gal Gadot's character was the main person, basically, in this movie, other than Hercule Poirot, and, you know, it focused on her and her husband, basically, because they're the rich, you know, that everybody's following and everything else, so, it focused on them, and then, as the story progressed, then they started introducing these other random people just to make them suspects in the case later on.
I feel like they tried to do the exact same thing they did for Murder on the Orient Express, but do it in a different way because they're on a ship on the Nile River in Egypt in this one, you know. Which, I mean, if you think about it, this is based on a book, so I guess it would be... If they did take the exact, like, make it almost exactly the accurate and exactly the same as the book, then I guess that's not that bad. But, like, if this was just a movie by itself that wasn't based on anything, then it's kind of like, oh, well, we saw the success of the first one, let's do the exact same thing here, but he's on a different mode of transportation this time.
Right. And, I mean, it's not really a sequel to Murder on the Orient Express.
It's more like
it's still part of the Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, you know, series, but it was at the end of, if you watch Murder on the Orient Express, at the end of it, he mentions he's going to Egypt to solve a murder. This is a completely different murder than that murder, and he just conveniently ends up back in Egypt for when this happens.
That part made no sense to me because it was like, yeah, like you said, at the end, at the end of Orient Express, some detective or something comes up to him and says, hey, I have a case for you in Egypt. And then he says, okay, I'll work on it or whatever, and he goes to Egypt. And we thought that was setting up, like, well, that's going to bleed right into this new one where, like, it'll start off with him, or it'll kind of give us a backstory of how the murder started, and then he shows up to investigate the murder or something. But no... At one point in the movie, like within the first 10 minutes or something, he's getting out of a car and there's paparazzi and stuff surrounding him, and they're just like, you know, congratulations, like, you solved this case, you solved the murder in Egypt, and blah, blah, blah. And we're just like...
Yeah, and we're
so
like,
you're going back
he's
to
going
Egypt?
back to Egypt. Yeah.
And then also, he didn't really make any reference to that, like, I was here last week or something.
Well, it said from the period that we see him at the beginning till the main scene on the boat, it was like a 6-week period, I think.
Yeah, but
so, like,
still,
he hadn't made any reference, like, it's great to be back in Egypt, or, you know, something like that. It was just, it was one of those weird things. And another weird thing was, and I guess I'm okay with it, they did a backstory for Hercule Poirot where he was in the army, like I guess the German army.
I guess it was meant
it
to
would
show,
be World War One,
yeah.
In 1914, I think, or whatever year that was.
I think it said 40. Well, no, the movie
40,
was 47. Yeah.
I think it was 1914 or whatever, and it showed like why he grew his mustache and stuff, because he got an explosion hit him on the face, and he grew his mustache to cover the scars. But like that was the first 10 minutes of the movie, and really we didn't need it.
Well, I kind of.
But I mean, I get why they put it there, just so it shows that he's been like this his whole life. You know, he's been this kind, because
really
he was able to
observant
save
and things
his group because of his ability to see things differently than other people.
Right.
You know, so I guess that's why they did it, just to show that he's always been like this, and it wasn't just something that he learned over time. But really,
I thought it was interesting. I just think it could have been done maybe as like a later on when he's talking about his past,
like a flashback.
Because he does mention something, because like his wife was killed. I think because she came to visit him after his injury to his face and stuff, and then she ended up getting killed. I guess the train she was on got blown up or something at that point. And that's how he lost. He mentioned her in the first one as well. He'd look at the picture and stuff.
Yeah, Catherine.
Or Katerina, or whatever her name was. Catherine, whatever.
Yeah.
Katerina. Or Katrina or something. Yeah, something along those lines. And he was mentioning all of this to one of the people on the boat that he's with later on. And it's like, that could have been where you kind of show that, maybe. Like, show us less than 10 minutes. Like, a couple minutes. Or have his voice over top of what's happening or something. And kind of him explaining that. That could have been that flashback.
Yeah, they could have started the movie with him solving that other murder on the Nile. Like they did with Murder on the Orient Express, where they showed him in, what was it, Jerusalem or whatever, solving a case before he went back to the Orient Express. They could have had this one start like that, where he's solving that previous murder in Egypt,
and then
and then go into this case, and then do that part as a flashback. But they started the movie with.
I mean, I thought it was okay because pretty much the theme of the whole movie was how people would do anything for love, essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
and that was him,
but still,
it was kind of showing his love life before this and stuff, and how he became the person he is today because he lost the love of his life. And then at the end of the movie, after he met someone on that boat, he's kind of in love with her now, so he was willing to shave off his mustache so you can see him for who he really is, I guess. So you see all his scars and everything. It looks weird without the mustache, but whatever. Yeah, but I know it was sort of like a character thing, just to show how he's been, like you said, how he's been doing it for a while, but I don't think we needed that part in the movie.
Yeah, not at the beginning, especially.
Yeah, and I just kind of feel, even in like Murder on the Orient Express and stuff, it's just convenient how like these things happen when Hercule Poirot is around. So like he just happened to be invited to be on the train in Orient Express, where there's then a murder for him to investigate. Now this one, he's brought on to, or they basically interrupted his vacation. Gal Gadot's character invited him to join them on their honeymoon vacation thing on the ship with a bunch of other people.
Because she was worried about
she was worried
happening.
Someone was trying to kill her, so she wanted him on there anyways, but she also kind of invited him just to be around them and stuff, because they had kind of befriended him. And then, of course, there's a murder on the boat, on the
technically
Nile.
Multiple murders.
Well, yeah, but I just think it's like, why does it have to be that convenient? Why couldn't it just have connected to that previous one where he said, hey, there's a murder in Egypt, we need you to come look at this, and then he goes to that and it comes right in or whatever, I would have been okay with that if it had shown the characters up to that point, and then the murder happens, and then we see Hercule Poirot come on for the first time or whatever. I just feel like the convenience is like way too high for that.
And not just that. There was a lot of confusing aspects to this movie, like why certain things were even in this movie. Like they did a whole scene where they went to the old pyramids and stuff, and they mentioned this like dust storm or sandstorm, whatever you want to call it, that could possibly be dangerous to them, and it ends up hitting them when they're in the pyramid. So it makes it set up like they're going to be trapped in the pyramid and somebody's going to end up getting killed. It's kind of like with Murder on the Orient Express, when the ice falls and stops the train from moving, it prevented them from going anywhere, so Hercule had more time to solve the case. They set it up kind of like that, like they would end up being trapped in this pyramid, and then Hercule would have to then solve the murder in the pyramid, and they would all be trapped there. But they had the storm. They ran back into the pyramid. It passed, and then they went back on the boat where the murder happened. Like, why? You didn't need that whole scene. You could have cut out that whole 10 minutes of them being at the pyramid. I mean, I get what it was, because they're in Egypt or sightseeing. I get that kind of stuff.
Well, because then somebody even tries to... Because, spoiler alert, first of all, Gal Gadot's character is the first one that's murdered. And technically, she was the actual victim. And then the other two people that were killed were because they witnessed it, kind of. But she almost gets... Like, somebody knocks, like, a boulder or something down onto her and almost kills her and her husband and stuff. But it misses. So it's like... They didn't really need that anyway. And the person that tried to do that wasn't even the main person. One who wanted her dead in the first place.
Yeah, that was really just kind of like a thing. It was just, but like you could have just had them be trapped in there, and like overnight somebody gets killed in the pyramid, and then Hercule Poirot has to solve it. That would have been cooler,
because then none of them can get out, so it had to have been one of them.
Yeah, and it sets up the scene like, oh, well, they couldn't have used, something from the boat to kill them. They would have had somebody had to have had something there, and where are they put? Like if they had a gun, right, and they used that,
they could hide it.
Like where did they hide it? Because there's only so many spaces in this pyramid that you could hide it.
See that?
So it has to be somewhere in here because nobody could leave.
I agree,
but they set that whole thing up and then did nothing with it.
I agree, but that would have also been kind of convenient because it's the same thing that happened on the
No, I get
Orient
that.
Express
Then just don't have that in the movie.
I know that there was a lot that could have been cut. That made. I mean, this movie was probably I think 2 hours or so, and it felt like nothing happened in the first hour or something before they actually got to the murder.
They did a lot of setting up,
which, like I said again, is probably how it happened in the book, I would assume. So they kind of they had to do what it said in there essentially to make the story the same. But I feel like when you make a movie based on a book, they're not always the same anyways. You can cut things.
True.
You can have other things play out. I don't know how much of it was true to the book. Maybe just the murder and the victim or something was the same and everything else was them throwing it in there, whatever. I just feel like even the ending of this compared to Orient Express, I just feel like Orient Express was a lot better because it was more surprising. And it wasn't as obvious who the killer was, because it turns out in Orient Express that it was all of them. They all took a turn stabbing the victim because they all had issues with him and wanted him dead. That
Which was again is convenient.
That was a perfect swerve for if you've never read that book or anything and you were going in wondering, trying to figure it out for yourself, And in this one it was just the victim's husband and his ex-wife were actually the ones that were in on it the whole time. They wanted her dead so that they could get back together again and get her estate and all that stuff, because she wouldn't give it to them originally. So they had this big setup from early on in the movie when she introduced him to her so that he would get closer to her and end up marrying her instead.
Right.
And it was all part of the act and all part of the plan and everything else. I just didn't think that really made that much sense, because the rest of the people that were on the boat also had something to do. They would have had a reason to want her dead, and so on. It's it's the same as Murder on the Orient Express, but they did it in a way where it wasn't as exciting, or it was kind of obvious who the killer was. At least one of the killers, if there were multiple, which it turned out there was. So I just didn't feel as excited about that ending. I was sitting there, I had all kinds of theories going in my head, who it could have been and why.
And then it's just...
Because there was even a part where someone stole her necklace. She had this really expensive necklace and stuff. And it didn't have anything to do with that. So I thought it was going to be somebody that wanted her dead. This other person wants the necklace. So, hey, we can come together and figure out, you kill her and I'll steal the necklace or whatever. So we both have an alibi or something. But I just didn't like that ending compared to Orient Express.
Well, and then, you look at it everything else that happened after that murder had to be set up perfectly for these two to get away with it for as long as they did.
Convenience.
The murder happened after, they had to set up this whole scenario to where the guy would get shot, end up faking it, then when they went to look for the doctor, he would sneak off, kill her, come back before the doctor got back to where he was. Meanwhile, the other person was causing a scene so that nobody would, and she had to stay there so that nobody would suspect her. But this was a 2-minute period. and you had to get the
There's,
whole way
no
across
way.
this boat
Yeah.
in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
go up, kill her, come back downstairs, and shoot yourself in the knee so that they would think that you actually got shot. You know, this
Yeah.
whole thing, it was like just the way they had it set up was like, if something would have happened, like if the doctor would have been in that room when they planned that, then they wouldn't have been able to shoot her,
yeah,
because the doctor
yeah.
would have already been. Like, how convenient is it that the doctor just happened to be somewhere down the other end of the boat,
Right.
you know, to when Hercule Poirot had to go get him.
And that's what confused me. Like, not only that, but also just how Hercule was able to figure this out. Like, it's never really explained how he figured out that he faked getting shot in the leg, or that she shot him with blanks and all that kind of stuff. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
It's always different. Like, throughout this thing, there's little minor things that people say that don't seem important, and then end up later on, it's like, oh yeah, when you mentioned this earlier, that's how this happened. And it's like, if you weren't paying attention, you're not gonna catch that. Like, there was a thing with paint being gone or something. Like, if you weren't paying attention, you're not gonna notice that somebody mentioned about red paint being gone.
Yeah,
you know, it's
just the motive and everything. Like, yeah, okay, the motive I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's like,
I mean, it's
also an obvious motive too. Like, more so obvious than like on Orient Express, for example, where they all had a different reason for wanting him dead, and they all technically got to kill him. By each of them taking a turn stabbing him and giving each other an alibi. This whole plan relied on a lot of things happening. Plus, there were like 5 different times in this movie where they could have easily killed her, and like nobody would have known. Like when they went into the tomb or the pyramids and stuff early on, that I was like, okay, this is where the murder's going to happen, and the dust storm is going to.
I mean, you know how many times like she's walked off by herself?
Yeah,
like they could have just showed up, just like slit her throat and pushed her overboard. Like, nobody would have even known she was gone.
Yeah, and
because the boat kept moving, so they wouldn't even known she was gone until somebody couldn't find her.
They could have did
it at any point.
Yeah. A lot of convenient things had to happen, and it just made it kind of just took me out of it, sort of, because like I'm like, that's a little bit unbelievable how like these things just happened to go right for them.
That was my point.
This was their plan. Their plan was kind of dumb in a way, like to do it that way. I get they were trying to give her an alibi by shooting him in the leg, because then she was taken to like, she was crying and everything, so they took her away, and then but none of it really made any sense when they finally revealed who it was. So like overall, if I were to rate this one, I'd give it like, I don't know, 2 or 3 out of 5. Like for a movie, just as a movie in general. I'm only being that lenient because like it was based on the book, and I'm guessing if the book was really popular, that's why they would have adapted it into a movie.
Overall, I would say I didn't hate the movie. I just think it could have been better. Yeah. So yeah, I would put it like a 3. I mean, but I think Kenneth Branagh did a great job.
Yeah, he
had to direct and play this character, so I think it was good. If they took it straight from the book, then I can't really hate on it because they're just basing it off of what happened in the thing. But if they changed a lot of it and didn't go by the book, then that's kind of on them.
It did have a lot of like big time actors in here. It was just like, I don't know. It wasn't as exciting, like I said. But let us know what you guys thought if you saw Death on the Nile. It just came out yesterday as of this video going up. If you haven't seen it, then go check it out and give us your opinion down in the comments section. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more, whatever we have coming up in the future. And thank you for watching this video, everyone. We will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Subscribe.